Hi and welcome to You Wellbeing. I'm Sarah Marshall and I'm here with my colleague Ashley Meyer. Hi Ashley.
Hi Sarah.
Hi. And what we're going to be covering in this video is the importance of working within a framework for sustainable recovery to become possible. Now Ashley, I know that we've worked with many clients over the years, and through this almost unique position we've had of being able to observe very closely this client group, we've noticed certain patterns, general patterns amongst all of our clients. And I know that this has led to us sitting down and starting to come up with some tangible framework to be able to give some kind of plan or treatment path for people to work with, because that's been one of the perpetuating factors of this condition, if you like.
Indeed.
So I know that we're going to go through the different stages that we've come up with and give people more of an idea of the different stages, the importance of each stage, how it helps to guide which modalities to use, and when to use them. So to begin with, it might be really good just to outline the 4 stages and say just a little bit about each stage before we go into more detail.
Okay, so I'll outline those 4 stages. Just before we do that, I think that really what got us to really map it out in these 4 different stages, if you like, is that many people with CFS and ME come to us and they have tried all sorts of different things, and for some people say, oh, that was really helpful for me, and other people say that wasn't helpful for me at all, or for some people something they tried really sort of had the reverse effect. So why is it actually that for some people something's working, for other people it's not? And so that's what really was the impetus for us sort of looking at what's really going on, and how can we build this in a way that can get people to recover? Because clearly people have recovered from ME and CFS, yet other people were sort of plateauing, booming and busting, all sorts of different things were happening. So that was the thinking behind coming up with sort of some kind of workable plan. So the 4 stages of recovery, the first one we call the maladaptive stage, the maladaptive stress stage and burnout stage. Okay. Then we go to the stabilization stage, then we go to the core work stage, and then we go to the reintegration stage. Now, within each stage, there's obviously a lot more detail and a lot more factors that we need to talk about, but that's broadly the kind of route that we're working through.
So I think it would be good to give a little bit more information about each stage so people can get more of a clear idea of what each stage involves, and just to start to create some very basic framework within their view of how to move forward with their recovery. Okay,
great. So the maladaptive stress state, the first one, the maladaptive and burnout state, is very often at the time of the onset of the condition. People may have been sort of unwell for a significant amount of time, but it could be sort of the time where really the system's burnt out, they've got this diagnosis, and their system is in a state where the stress response is as such that anything that they try and do for their recovery seems to be rejected by the body. I know that we've got a video that specifically relates to the maladaptive stress state. So when people are in that state, because a lot of the treatments that they might be trying or being recommended to them are not working, that actually can perpetuate the situation because they're trying all sorts of things that just aren't making them feel better. And the more that happens, the more their stress state increases or gets stuck, so to speak. And the system is burnt out accordingly.
And this is the stage that we see most people in. I mean, not every person, but most people, this is the stage they get stuck in. As you said, the stage itself can perpetuate the stage unless you're very clear about what's going on.
Absolutely, and very often it's sort of the kind of advice that people are getting at that point is inappropriate. So they may be told that they just need to go home and sleep. And they may not feel that they can sleep. Or for some people they're told that they just sort of need to sort of do some graded exercise and just sort of start pushing themselves back into some kind of normal life. And those recommendations can actually have an adverse effect.
And I know for myself, when I was in that stage, in hindsight, I didn't know what else to do, so I just kept pushing through. That's the only thing that I could think about doing.
Okay.
So that's the first stage, the burnout and the maladaptive stress stage. Now, the second stage is the stabilisation stage, and this is, as we've said, will be the stage that we work with people the most because of the stage that we see them coming to us.
Yeah. Indeed. So again, referring back to the other video that we put out about the maladaptive stress response, we speak about the body being either sort of in a stress state or being in a relaxation state. Now, if the body is sort of more in a relaxation state, and we're not talking about black and white here, we're talking about a continuum. So if the body is sort of more towards the relaxation state, then it's getting itself into this sort of state where it can start to rebuild itself. It can start to recover. So in the stabilization stage, it's all about starting to move the body out of the maladaptive stress state into the relaxation state.
Yeah.
Now, in the stabilization state, that can be a number of different elements that we're working with. So it could be that people are addressing certain behaviors.
Yeah.
It could be that people are addressing certain lifestyle factors that they know are causing stress to their system. And that might, giving those behaviors or factors up, that might start edging them towards the relaxation state. But as we well know, quite often it's more of an internal process that is taking place.
Yeah.
So it's about addressing the external and the internal, essentially.
And it's more about management at this stage, isn't it? We're helping to calm the system down. We're doing it more on a surface level.
Indeed.
Yeah, because we know that the system at this stage is quite sensitized. It can be easily overstimulated, and that's our main focus.
Yeah, I think really what's key and what sort of being aware of the 4 different stages provides is that much as we'd like to sort of overcome the illness as soon as we possibly can, what's much more beneficial is to take it slowly and thoroughly and address each stage appropriately, because that's the way that you really do shift from stage to stage and build sustainable recovery, which at the time might feel like the longer route.
Yeah.
But in the long run, it turns out to be the shorter route.
Yeah. So now we're looking at stabilising the system. Things are starting to calm down, and then we know that people then move into the next stage. So the core work stage.
Yeah. So the core work stage would be when we are really going to look at the underlying factors that were at play that got the system into the situation in the first place. Now, those factors could be of a physiological nature and also of an emotional, psychological, behavioral nature. So that's the time when people really start to look at all the different factors and engage with them and start really working through them. Had we started with that work straight from burnout, the system wouldn't have been strong enough to sustain that work. So if we were sort of just coming out of the burnout stage and we started to look at sort of the trauma that had happened in our life, the system's not in a resilient enough state to be able to withstand that form of work.
Yeah.
Similarly, if we're not coming out of the maladaptive stress state and we're embarking on sort of doing work on our nutrition, if our system's in a stress state, it's going to reject a lot of what you're putting into it anyway.
Yeah, and that was one of my experiences, that I think it stabilised me a little bit, but I just didn't benefit from it at all. But I was doing it in the burnout stage, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what kind of things might happen in the core work stage? Any?
Yeah, so in the core work stage, as I said, we either dealing with sort of psychological factors or physiological factors. So in the core work stage, it would be about potentially sort of addressing nutrition, looking at other bodily functions that need sort of some support.
Yeah.
On the psychological side, then it would be sort of very important to be addressing your behaviors and looking at what are the core behaviors that was driving my system into this burnout stage in the first place. Looking at why we behave in those ways, which mostly goes back to factors earlier in life, really. So we may be sort of really going back to sort of childhood for some people,
Sure.
And looking at sort of different factors that were at play there that had sort of such an impact on them.
Yeah.
For some people, there may be significant amount of trauma to be worked through at that point. So the emotional trauma, psychological behavioral factors, those are the key ones that we're going to be working with at the core work stage. And that's really what our quartz process is all about.
Yeah.
It's being able to really closely identify what's really going on and what needs to be worked on. Because we don't want to get stuck in working on factors that are actually not that relevant to recovery. If people then choose to carry on and do that work, that's great.
Yeah.
But really we're wanting to sort of work on the key factors that are going to really allow the body to start regenerating and building its resources, if you like.
So basically we're working on the factors that are still coming into play and having a detrimental impact on us now.
Yeah.
And I know that you mentioned physiological as well as the psychological, the cognitive, the behavioural. Now I know for a lot of people it's quite easy for them to look at the diet and go, well, my diet isn't very good.
Yeah.
But on the other side of things, I know people, especially when our self-awareness is low, may not be fully be able to realise what is going on. So I'm guessing the core work stage is a very good stage, an integral stage of working with a practitioner to guide you through the cognitive factors that are coming into play.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
So then we've got the core work stage, and then we've got the final stage, is what we call the reintegration stage.
Yeah.
So once we've done enough of the core work stage, we don't have to sort everything out. It's not as though we have to be a completely sorted person.
No.
But we sort out enough for our body to significantly respond, and then we go into reintegration.
I think we've got the analogy as well of the seesaw, if you like.
Yeah.
And so it's like sort of some balancing scales. And so on the one side we've got the demands on the system. On the other side we've got the resources of the system.
Yeah.
When we're in the burnout stage, the demands we're burnt out, we're flat, and sort of the resources just aren't there. And so it's all about sort of restoring that kind of balance, which we do sort of through the stabilization and the core work stage, and then also moving into the reintegration stage. And so the core, so tipping the balance and building the resources may be about being able to sort of ask people for help.
Yeah.
Or being able to be vulnerable, or being able to sort of let go of sort of all the things that we were driven to do previously.
Yeah.
So it's all that's then sort of starting to sort of allow the resources of the body and the mind to start building up, which then sort of builds the resilience of the system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I know with the reintegration stage, a lot of people probably pay this stage the least attention.
Yeah.
But we know that if that happens, then it's the stage where we end up going back into the burnout stage. Would you like to say a little bit about that, Ashley?
Yeah, well, I think that reintegration, as the term implies, is about kind of reintegrating into life. And so by the time people are sort of working through the core work stage, then they're starting to feel better. Their resources are starting to be built up again. The body's feeling stronger. They've got more energy. Things are sort of starting to look a bit better. Now, obviously, due to the longevity of the condition for many people, all they want is just to get back to life. And so that's why the reintegration stage is often one that can not be given the importance that it should. So people are just kind of like, they've had enough, they've done enough work, time to get back. And that's fully understandable.
Yeah.
However, there are certain factors that really need to be dealt with in the reintegration stage.
I know we were talking earlier about my recovery,
Yeah.
and how I was saying the reintegration stage was probably the stage that I put my most consistent work into, because I knew that it was key to sustainable recovery.
Absolutely. So the reintegration stage is really all about potentially making some changes that need to be changed in life. And so that can be making sure that we don't go back into the same career, the same job, the same relationship, whatever the case may be. But it's more than that. It's about really addressing those initial behaviours that created the situation in the first place, so that we don't find ourselves getting back into life after having invested so much effort in recovery, and find that actually our responses to stressful situations is exactly the same, or we continue to be a person that sort of gives out too much of their energy consistently, or our perfectionist traits, for example, still haven't been dealt with appropriately, so we keep pushing ourselves, and essentially what we do is we run the risk of repeating the whole cycle again. Yeah,
so it's not going back into a half-life, but a balanced, healthy, supported life.
Indeed.
Yeah. I think it's also an important point to note that people take different time periods to go through these different stages. It's going to be different for each person depending on the factors. And it's not a nice straightforward trajectory. It's not as though we go through one to the other, but we tend to oscillate. But as long as the oscillation is progressively through the stages, then that's how we tend to see recovery happen.
Absolutely. But again, it gives a template so that people understand where they're at and they understand why things aren't moving forward for them or what they need to do in order to move forward.
Okay, thank you, Ashley.
Thank you, Sarah.
So I'm sure you all found that very helpful and useful and giving you some ideas about why you've maybe had the experience you've had so far, or at least a template of how to move forward. To speak with us or to find out more information about working with us, please visit our website, which is www.uwellbeing.com. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.